Well, there's been lots of movement the last 24 hours on many of the legal cases involving Donald Trump, including testimony from Stormy Daniels that might not have gone as well for the prosecution as they hoped. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, a Georgia appeals court said this morning that it will weigh whether to disqualify Fani Willis from the Trump case. Now, revelations that Willis was in a romantic relationship with one of the other people working on the case sparked a months-long detour that has only recently been resolved. Meanwhile, a judge has indefinitely postponed his federal trial in Florida over alleged mishandling of classified documents while in office. U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon, who was appointed by Trump, said that setting a trial date would be, quote, impudent. It would not be prudent. The trial was supposed to start May 20th. It is highly unlikely that the trial will begin before the election.
From porn star to prosecution's key witness, Stormy Daniels took the stand Tuesday in Donald Trump's hush money trial, where she recounted details of the alleged 2006 affair between her and the ex-president, then subsequently shopped the story years later and then again around 10 years after the fact ahead of the 2016 elections.
At the crux of this case is the $130,000 that Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie A. Gregory Clifford, was allegedly paid to stay quiet about the encounter with Trump. Her much-anticipated testimony was expected, but she didn't confirm she would show till Tuesday morning. Now, speaking from the stand, Daniels claimed that she met Trump at a celebrity golf tournament back in 2006, a year after Trump married his wife, Melania. It was then that the pair engaged in sexual relations. Trump has denied the allegations all along and has tried to get her barred from testifying. 2 weeks before the 2016 election, then Trump's fixer Michael Cohen paid the porn star the hush money and had her sign a non-disclosure agreement. Daniels later said she took the money because she was, quote, scared for her life. During cross-examination, Stormy Daniels admitted she hates Trump, and even CNN thought her answers were not well received by the jury. Take a listen to CNN's legal analyst Eli Koenig reacting to the testimony.
The cross-exam, boy, her responses were disastrous. I mean, do you hate Donald Trump? Yes, of course she does. That's a big deal. When the witness hates the person whose liberty is at stake, that's a big damn deal. And she's putting out tweets, fantasizing about him being in jail. That really undermines the credibility. The fact that she owes him $500,000, she, by order of a court, owes Donald Trump $500,000 and said, I will never pay him. I will defy a court order. The defense is going to say she's willing to defy a court order. Why? She's not willing to respect an order of a judge. Why is she going to respect this oath she took? So I thought it went quite poorly on cross-exam. At the end of direct, I thought, okay, they got what they needed, but I think the cross is making real inroads.
And you can see a lot of that kind of reaction from I think, the mainstream and liberal commentators on social media, thinking that people in the room perceiving that the jury was not really into what she was saying.
Yeah, the way I heard Lawrence O'Donnell describe it was that she was trying to kind of play, kind of humor toward the jury, and the jury seemed to be taking their jobs very seriously, not really reacting to her in that way. But on the same token, I also see an argument that Donald Trump's counsel's forceful arguments for a mistrial reflect that they think the Stormy Daniels testimony has polluted the jury in a way that prevents the trial from going on fairly from the perspective of Donald Trump. So specifically, the kind of detail in which she described their sexual encounter, the timing of their sexual encounter happening while Melania was pregnant, whatever you think about whether it demonstrates that he violated the law that he's been accused of violating now, that it basically poisons Donald Trump's integrity in the eye of the court. And also, given that this is a man who's in the middle of running for president of the United States of America, is being tarnished in these kinds of ways, even outside of the context of what his legal liability is.
Certainly. She did get into more salacious details about the encounter that she says happened. She said that Trump told her that him and Melania didn't even sleep in the same room. I saw some of that. Getting into those kinds of things. So it's interesting that the defense, I think the defense want to, delay this as long as possible. They want to call in procedural hurdles. They want to say it can't go on for this reason. So it could be the case that even if they think the things she's saying are not particularly damaging or may in fact even be damaging to the prosecutor's case, they want a mistrial because they want to they want to try this again later, always further in the future to get it past the election
And to be
date.
clear, the question isn't the point of Stormy Daniels being here is to
It's not like
substantiate
whether
the
they
underlying
actually, no, that
right.
doesn't matter.
And so she's just substantiating the underlying interaction occurred. So she apparently gave details about the room, the floor, the furniture, the fact of Donald Trump's toiletry kit in the bathroom rather. CNN reports that at one point in court, Daniels threw back her arm and lifted her leg in the witness box to recreate the moment she says Trump posed on his hotel bed for her, stripped down to his undergarments. She talked about the fact that there was spanking involved. She talks about,
this is a family show, Briahna.
Well, I mean, this is what the jury heard and what the room heard. And Lawrence O'Donnell was saying that despite having covered trials that involve much more serious subject matter, murders and the like, that the tension in this room was unique in his own experience, perhaps because the stakes were so high, perhaps because the subject of the testimony is someone who was once a president of the United States of America and hopes to be one again.
Yeah, we'll see. And then, of course, there's the other news about the Fani Willis matter. So the Trump legal team wanting to say that, you got to do this whole case over again, too, because of the pollution there. Fani Willis having brought in someone who she was in a romantic relationship with, who was not really, who there were doubts about whether he was qualified to actually handle the case for the prosecution. So it's interesting to see this move being taken.
But to be clear, whether or not Fani Willis is allowed to continue prosecuting this case is a different issue from whether or not the case will go forward.
Right.
So again, all of this has resulted in delays. I think
delay.
that's the game for the Trump campaign, but it doesn't mean that he is off the hook per se. It's also, I just wanted to address the kind of narrative that some people are pushing with respect to the Stormy Daniels, that the idea that Stormy Daniels hates the president or dislikes the president is disqualifying. I imagine in most criminal cases, Stormy Daniels isn't the defendant, but people who are in that kind of posture often hate the person who's being persecuted for a crime. If they have in fact done a crime, they've been charged with some sort of wrongdoing. There are going to be people who are victimized by that crime who have very negative feelings because of the thing that was done. So I wouldn't read too far into that one way or the other. I would be skeptical if Stormy Daniels said, "Oh no, I think Donald Trump is so great." I mean, what kind of answer do you expect to get from someone who has been going back and forth in these legal entanglements? And recall that the underlying question in this case is whether or not she was paid $130,000 to stay quiet about the fact that they had this sexual encounter.
I mean, she was paid $130,000. That is right.
And whether or not that was fraudulently recorded as a campaign, as a legal expense for the campaign.
That gets into, again, the crime isn't really, the crime he's being charged with here, accused of, is not really against her. It's against campaign finance law. So the fact that she would have this, I hate him, I fantasize about him going to jail, the things she's tweeted about it, that's what they're going to say is she's being used by an anti-Trump faction, by Democrats or something to drum something up against him. His alleged violation of the law isn't actually against her.
Are you denying? Is anybody denying that the encounter took place?
Well, I think Trump has denied that the encounter.
Well, her testimony.
I'm not denying.
But the testimony is that the encounter took place. So you can say she's a bad faith actress. She's lying. What exactly are you saying that she's lying about? What is her animus supposed to be misrepresenting in the scenario? Because as you point out, the case is about whether or not Michael Cohen, at Trump's direction, mischaracterized the payment to Stormy Daniels.
Not whether the payment
not
was
whether or
made.
not the payment was. So at the end of the day, you can think, unless you are,
that's why he didn't think she needed to testify at all.
Sure, but unless you have facts to dispute what she's actually testifying to, the underlying sexual interaction that she's described in a great deal of detail, not just here, not just yesterday, but in multiple interviews over the course of the last years and years and years, then her personal feelings don't really seem material in any of this.
Well, then why is she testifying at all is the question.
Well, to lay the foundation for that the event actually happened. And I think from the perspective of the prosecution, of course you want to diminish Donald Trump. So this is the discussion. To what extent is that kind of legal and appropriate, or kind of tainting the jury's perception of the witness in a way that is not legally appropriate? Yeah.
More Rising right after this.